So welcome everyone to our pointers from our partners. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Solène Odette, who is an expert, not as only a startup launcher herself, but she is teaching entrepreneurs and core entrepreneurs, which are people over 50, on how to start their own business. And today is going to be a practical working session where we will be able to not only learn what it takes to become an entrepreneur, but start making some progress, practical steps towards that dream. So without further ado, Solène, please take it away.
Thanks, Stella. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So to give everyone a bit of context, the idea for Blissen started as I saw many people in their 50s and beyond trying to figure out what's next for them. And what I've learned is that most people are looking for three key things at this stage of their lives: financial security, flexibility, and a bigger sense of purpose. And what I've seen is that a significant chunk of adults over 50 has actually been thinking about starting their own business for a while, sometimes for years, but they haven't taken the leap yet. So at Blissen, we want to help people in this demographic get the confidence to take the plunge and realize their entrepreneurial aspirations, as starting your own business can be a great way to make an income, do what you love, and capitalize on your expertise. So we believe that can be a great career transition or way to return to work for women. And that's why I'm delighted that we had this wonderful partnership with Amazing Community. So let me share my screen. So deciding to start your own business is a big decision, but it shouldn't be overwhelming or paralyzing. And there are actually many ways that you can start small to validate your idea and decide whether or not you want to pursue it further. So the goal for today is to help you think through 4 critical questions that you should ask yourself as you get started. So why do I want to start my own business? Is there a market for what I want to offer? How much money do I need to start? And do I have what it takes to be successful? So answering those questions will give you more confidence in your choice of moving ahead or not. So first thing first, please all grab a pen and a piece of paper. For each of those questions, we'll go through a short exercise to help you with your thinking. And so you will all have some time to complete the exercise on your own. And then we'll have a short discussion where you have the opportunity to share with the group. So why do I want to start my own business? This may seem obvious, but sometimes we think we want to start a business that we don't think thoroughly about the why. And this question is critical to make sure that you're taking the leap for strong reasons and that you weighted the rewards, but also the risks. So what are your goals and motivations? What about starting a business motivates you the most? As the pandemic caused layoffs and created a lot of employment uncertainty, deciding to work for yourself can definitely seem more desirable than finding another 9 to 5 job that might not last. So entrepreneurship is the path that can offer a kind of freedom and personal satisfaction that is really hard to find in a traditional job. It's also a great way to build a new revenue stream on the side and smoothly transition into retirement. So if you currently have an existing revenue stream, a key question to ask yourself may be, can I start this new business on the side while keeping my primary job? This is less risky and allows you to test the water and see if your idea has some legs before going full time on it. While starting your business is rewarding, it also comes with its set of challenges. So you need to be ready for unstable income, especially as you start out. Develop your sales skills to acquire customers, overcome self-doubt, and be ready to manage all parts of your business. It can be stressful, and you need to understand how much risk you're willing to take. So that's why you need very strong reason why you want to start in order to be able to go through the hard times and stay motivated. So now time for the first exercise. So you're going to have 1 minute to write down the top 3 reasons why you want to start your own business and the top 3 reasons why you might be on the fence. So let's go. So does anyone wants to share some of their motivations or concerns with the group?
I'll share. So I actually started a business. It's a consulting business. And I'll just real quick, brief background. I have 28 years in the government. And so I'm retired from the government. So I wanted to have another job that allowed me the flexibility. So my motivation was a flexible schedule. It's a consulting business in the world of acquisitions. So it's my passion. It's what I did for the government. So it's something that I thought I could be of service to others. So I really relate to that and the flexibility in the schedule. And while I consider that somewhat of my passion, I'm hoping that through this, an offshoot could be that I can pursue my true passion, which is public speaking. I really enjoy the opportunity to share concepts, but in a light way and make things fun. So that's what I hope will come of it over time. I would say the challenge is I kind of went into it not really understanding what I was doing. So I would say that I didn't think through this question, which probably would have been a great thing to do because I didn't think about the digital skills that I don't have that would have helped me. I had to reach out to Christine and have her help me on some stuff. So you really do need to have a network to have people help you out on these things. And I think I still suffer from a little bit of self-doubt when you work for the government. You are used to being put in a job and you go from this job to this job to that job. And I think now with it being so unstable, having the self-confidence that you just need to wait this out, and over time, as long as you keep pursuing things, something will come and happen.
Yeah, those are great insights, and sometimes not overthinking it is actually a really good approach. And I think the idea of trying to start very small, like launching your MVP, and then you always have so much to learn that you cannot know everything before you get started. So taking baby steps is usually the best way to go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So for each question, I added a few helpful resources like videos or books that you might find interesting and check after the session. So now, is there a market for what I want to offer? So there's one thing common to successful business ideas is that they are a response to a problem. They fulfill a desire or need. So back to your point, Chris, if you want to create a viable business, you need customers who will pay for your product or services. And that's what's going to determine the value and willingness to pay of your potential customers. So then who has this problem? Who are your target customers? What are their demographics? Their age, gender, race, where do they live? What are their psychographics, their interests, opinions, etc. So for example, Chris, in your case, who is going to use your product, but also who is going to buy your product is an important question. And so it's really important to understand who's going to buy your product in order to be able to position your offer, your pricing and messaging in the most effective way. So then what's the competition? Are there many other products or services like yours? To play the game well, you need to know the other players. So you can usually do like a Google search to see who else is doing what you want to offer in your area. And just because someone else is already offering wellness coaching services, for instance, doesn't mean that you cannot do it too. But it's important to identify what the competition looks like in order to assess if your service or product is in demand and how you can offer something even more attractive. So then, speaking of differentiating yourself from the competition, you need to determine what your special sauce or unique value proposition is. So it should be something about your company that stands out from the rest. It can come from a lot of different areas: your unique background or experience, your key personal strengths, charitable donations that you make, where your product is made, the unique quality of your services, some competitive pricing, or your stellar customer service. So let's go through the second exercise. So even if you're not sure about your business idea, just take a shot at it. So it's going to be to create your one-sentence pitch with the following format. I want to, the service or product you'd like to offer, to help your target customers, the problem you're solving, and my secret sauce is. So let's take the example of Blissen. I want to create an online bootcamp to help first-time entrepreneurs under the age of 50 go from a business idea to an actual business in 12 weeks. My secret sauce is no tech headaches, lots of personalized guidance, and community support. So you have 1 minute to draft something. Let's go. Anyone wanna take a shot?
I don't want to take over, but I'll gladly participate. Sorry that this is a little technical, but I would say that I want to provide small businesses with acquisition guidance. So that would be the service, understanding how the process works. So that would be the service. And I specifically want to help small businesses because I think the benefit for them will be that they'll understand the process. There's a hard time for them to get contracts with the government. So this would be helping them to grow their businesses. So that would be the benefit to them. And I would say my secret sauce would be the 28 years of experience that I've had doing that in this environment.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing secret sauce for sure. Great. Anyone else wants to chime in? We'll move on. All right, so one of the first things we ask participants to do during our bootcamp is to talk to potential customers to build confidence they are on the right track and further refine their business concept and target audience. So getting firsthand information on your market through those one-to-one interviews is super valuable to validate whether the people you want to serve actually need what you want to offer. So what you should do is find at least 5 people who reflect your target market and ask them questions to better understand their pain points and how much they would be willing to pay. So some examples of questions to ask are, talk me through the last time you encountered that problem. How are you currently dealing with this? How do you like about the current solution? How much do you pay? And so when interviewing, keep your questions short, easy to understand, and try to learn from the past actions as much as possible instead of their opinions. Because people like to be polite, and it's a better signal to learn from past actions than potential behavior. So you also aim to uncover unmet needs during those interviews. And mostly you're trying to start building your list of leads for when you actually go live. So now, next short exercise, you're going to try to write down the name of 10 potential customers you can reach out to conduct those one-to-one interviews. And if you don't know 10 people, think about who you can ask in your network for relevant introductions or communities that you can leverage, like relevant Facebook groups. And your post-session challenge is actually to talk to 5 of those people and ask them about their main pain points. And that will help you refine your business concept based on what you learn. So you're going to have 1 minute starting from now.
So on my very undefined business, I could easily reach out. I'm not a grandparent, but I know a lot of people who are. And so obviously I would start with them to see what their level of interest would be in something like that. And most importantly, what their price sensitivity is. My feeling is that grandparents will spend a lot of money on their grandchildren. And if they're leaving them with something that's going to remind them of them and continue the connection after they've, they're not visiting or whatever, I think they would be willing to pay, but that's just like an instinct. And I'd like to have that verified. I'd also like to talk to somebody who's in manufacturing to see how expensive it is to put together something like that, how you scale up. So, and I know some people who are in that space. So I would reach out to them as well, because I think that's going to be important from a pricing perspective.
Yeah, that sounds like a great approach. And Heather, do you have any tips from your experience trying to reach out to your target customers?
I have spoken to a few of them, and I do have a couple of clients, but what I did beforehand in terms of the pricing was I did reach out to a couple of my friends who buy this service and or a similar service, and they gave me some ideas for price ranges that I should consider offering. And I was lucky enough to get somebody who does exactly what I do tell me exactly what she charges and how she came up with her scale. So that's been helpful for me. But I still find that the number can be a little jarring at times. So I'm trying to make sure I understand or present it in a way that shows the benefit that they're going to get from it versus looking at it as this number, but rather look what I can do for your business.
Yeah, actually, this is a great tip, trying to reach out to people who offer very similar products or services. If they're willing to share about their experience and their pricing, that can be like really valuable information. And maybe you can start amazing partnerships with them as well. So I think that that's a really good approach.
You know, what this reminds me of, Solène and everyone, and Heather, is that it's so important that we start, you know, there's been articles about this over the last couple of years, maybe the last year really, in transparency over salaries and, you know, fee structures and this kind of thing. And so just a real quick from my side, not to take up too much time, when I had to launch a consulting firm in 2014, unplanned, didn't have any of the planning or questions, Solène, that you're offering here. Wish you had been there for me, and or any of the support structures or anything really, financial stability, and was lucky enough to have excellent connections and was able to hit the ground running in ways that were really important. However, I didn't know, you know, moving from a salary to, in your case, Heather, a consulting firm, you know, what do I charge, right? What's the fee structure? And so, you know, what was really interesting is that my primary mentor was my great uncle, who at the time, he's now 93. At the time, he was in his 80s. And he said, well, let's go look and see what the government fee structure is at the top level. You know, what is the, you know, what do those top consultants charge? At the time, I think it was something, we couldn't get that 2014, we got 2012, something like this. It was something like $350 an hour. He's like, okay, let's charge $400 an hour. I was like, all right, let's do it. And it was so amazing because I went into a meeting a few days later and basically set down, you know, what my fee structure was for something. And the person accepted it. And my mind was blown. Essentially, because I'd never had to monetize previously in that sort of way, you know, what my value was. And it was a really, that was a really important experience, and has, you know, has influenced a lot of how I've gone moving forward. But truly, you know, talking about being transparent with one another, you know, what salaries are, what fee structures are is so important. You know, we have this sort of, I think some sort of strange, who knows where we inherit it from, right? Idea about, you know, oh, we can't talk about money or, you know, what we make. But if we're going to really link arms and move forward together, we have to do that.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I think that must have been a really insightful experience. And the thing with pricing is that you're really need to spend time experimenting with a few prices as you start out to really understand how much people value what you're offering. So yeah, those are great insights.
I guess, you know, I was just thinking about what, you know, if you don't know 10 potential customers, you know, of your target market, what a great source of information and insights and potential referrals actually Amazing Community itself could provide. So I'm just thinking about some other, you know, something else for us to keep in mind as we're thinking about what we do and what we offer as a community.
Jody, that's a fantastic idea.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure many people in the community would be happy to open their network to whoever needs it. So thank you for sharing. All right, let's move on. So those are, again, some resources. If you're looking for tips on what questions to ask potential customers during interviews, the MOM test the mom test is really like the Bible when it comes to asking the right questions that are really going to give you valuable information. So I highly recommend that book. It's really short as well.
Just one thought. It's a little
Yeah.
bit unconventional because it's really not about, starting a business, but there's some really interesting work. I don't know if you all know Clay Christensen. He was from Harvard. He he has some really famous work around what is a problem to solve. It's really about product design, but some of the questions and some of the research and how he goes about defining the problem to solve, sometimes through observation even, is really interesting. And I think would add potentially might be an interesting thing to add to the list because it presents, I think, a very different way of thinking about defining the problem to solve, if you will. So
yeah, this is actually he has really good books to help you define your problem. So I'll definitely add that to the list. Thanks, Jody.
And I think his last one was really, how do you want to define, how do you want to really define your life? How do you want to be remembered? And
I haven't read that
off
one.
topic, but I think it was the last one he wrote, possibly.
Okay, I'll check it out. All right, so how much money do I need to start? And so it depends on your business idea, obviously, but the short answer is that ideally you shouldn't need to invest much money upfront. There are many business ideas today, especially service-based businesses, that can be started with a few $100s or a few thousands of dollars maximum. And so what you're trying to figure out here is that what expenses are absolutely necessary to get started. So for example, maybe your dream is to open up a storefront to sell handmade accessories. However, you need a lot of money to open that physical store. And so a great way to get started would be to sell your products online or at a farmer's market. So what you should do is make a list of all the things that you'll have to pay for in order to start getting your initial customers. And that number might be smaller than you think. So the initial cost may include buying your domain name and building a website, getting a professional email. So those three, you can actually get it for about $200 per year if you use Squarespace. Hire a bookkeeper, but as you get started, you could also do it yourself using old school Excel spreadsheets. Incorporation costs, so you could just start as a sole proprietor, which requires no paperwork, or you could decide to file as a LLC, which usually costs a few $100s. So at this stage, as you don't even have your first customers yet, you only want to focus on what you absolutely need to start, as most expenses can actually wait until you generate a profit and your business grows. You should also think about what you do have access to. So for example, the amazing community members or friends with specific expertise who could, for example, make a logo for you, and how you plan to utilize those resources. So now let's do the next exercise where try to write down all the essential costs that you need to get started on your business idea, and try to include only expenses that are absolutely necessary to start validating your idea. And then think about whether you can afford and are willing to invest that amount of money. So you have 1 minute. So does anyone have any comments to share, or does it seem like a lot? Does it seem reasonable? What do you think?
I'd say that I was probably about, for me to do everything, a little over $1,000 maybe between, and the reason it cost me that much, I think I overpaid because I went through LegalZoom to help assist with all of the licenses that I needed. And I think there are other people who go out and just look and do the research on their own and figure out what they need to do. I didn't want to make any mistakes, so I had them do that. So I would say probably between the LegalZoom, setting up the business, getting the licenses and getting the website done and the business email, it's probably about a little over 1,000. I don't know, maybe $1,400, $1,400.
What business structure did you?
I did a sole proprietorship.
Got it.
Which that's also something that I feel there's not a lot of education out there unless you're willing to do it. So I think that I'm grateful that I went through LegalZoom because they at least explained. I was like, why do I need this? I don't even understand. And I was surprised once I finally understood why I was doing a sole proprietorship and how I was going to be taxed, and how setting up your business is one thing and being taxed is another thing. So that's also something to understand. And I didn't get that until I met with somebody who just understood the bookkeeping aspects of it and explained the difference between the two and drew a picture to help me visualize it. But if you don't have that, that would really be helpful, I think, for people to understand that. I walked into it just by happenstance.
I agree, Heather, completely. Same experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there, which can be overwhelming. And sometimes having just one expert explaining just what you need to know is super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say that when it comes to, starting your own consulting business or practice, you could, if you had to, you could even just be an independent contractor and start there. So, there's sort of these layers of things that you want to add if you can, but I mean, having done it myself, I think you could even get started without that and then figure out as you go that,
Yeah.
set up my LLC or, something else would make more sense from a financial perspective. But,
That's a really good point.
wouldn't stop you from getting started, I don't think. One thing that was an expense that I wasn't expecting at that time because of the kind of consulting I was doing was I had a client who insisted that I get some pretty heavy duty coverage, for D&O, and I was kind of surprised because I wasn't doing anything that really had any risk to it, but I was being brought in through a part of the organization where that was just the default practice, and it was a couple of $1,000s a year that I, and it needed to be maintained for 5 years after whenever we would stop working together. I needed to, so that was the, that was part of their master services agreement. So little things like that are good to know also.
Definitely. All right, so let's move on. So yeah, here I included a few startup costs and budget templates that you can use if you want to go a bit deeper into your starting cost. And so now, do I have what it takes to be successful? Last question. So starting and running a business is very different from having a traditional corporate job. So it requires a significant shift in mindset, the willingness to learn a lot of new skills, and the ability to bounce back from setbacks. So you need to view yourself as a lifelong learner and feel excited about the task at hand. And so the good news is that a growth mindset is something that can be developed. And a good way to start is to regularly try something new, get outside of your comfort zone, and enjoy the learning process instead of focusing too much on the outcome. Then what's my risk tolerance? Risk is an inherent part of business ownership, so you need to be able to deal comfortably with ambiguity. In addition, you will often have to make decisions that will not only impact your business, but also your family and others around you. So I think their support will help make things easier when tough times arise. So a good idea is also to take steps to relieve some of the financial pressure by downsizes or cutting down on regular expenses. Then how comfortable am I with selling? This is a tough one because as an entrepreneur, you are the primary salesperson of the company. So the responsibility of finding customers and generating revenue will fall on you. So your ability to promote your business is probably the most important skill you will need as an entrepreneur. So there are tons of resources and strategies on how to sell. So you should try to identify the sales strategy or approach that best fits your personality so that it comes more naturally and seems authentic. And then finally, how important is this business to me? I'm ready to put in the time and energy. It's not going to be easy and it's going to require a lot of persistence. So you need to ask yourself, how important is it for you to create that business? It's not going to be about having all the stars aligned and you feeling 100% confident all of the time. So it's really about your passion and excitement outweighing your fears and doubts. The good news is that people are usually more adaptable and much more resilient than they think. and that any skill can be learned if you put in the effort. So now let's do our final exercise. Try to come up with 3 examples of situations where you overcame a setback in the past. And I'm sure you're probably much more resilient than you think. And then think about your most important fear or mental block and one action that you can take now to start overcoming it. And your post-session challenge will be to actually take that action to start overcoming that fear or mental block. So you have 1 minute. All right, so does anyone want to share some of their answers? I feel like people are buying experiences. Like, for example, if you look at Airbnb experiences, so many people right now make a living actually selling cooking classes. I feel like since the people are really into buying experiences, I'm really into buying experiences. Now, whenever I have a birthday, I actually tend to give the gift of an experience instead of an actual product. So I do think you're onto something, Stella.
So with that, we'll stop the recording and thank you.